Thank you. Thank you so much. I assume you can all hear me and everything is working brilliantly first time, flawlessly. So I'm gonna say that's the case. You don't want to see my messy background. So today we're in space. I also realized a couple of moments ago it does something weird with my eyes. So I think that's kind of funny. As mentioned, my name's Kevin. I'm a developer advocate at Vonage, formerly Nexmo, which means that I get to support developers exploring our APIs. So let me share my screen and get that working. Share my screen brilliantly. Good, that seems to be good. So yeah, as mentioned, I work for Vonage. We're a cloud communications platform. So we let you integrate messages, voice, and video, among other things, in your applications using our APIs and SDKs. Today, we are going to be building a Facebook bot using this, our messages API. It's not going to be a clever bot. It's going to receive messages, store them in a database, and then when a user sends us a specific keyword, we will go and grab all of their messages and return it to them. So that's what we're going to be building today. But you can be doing anything you want kind of in between receiving messages and sending responses to make your bot a little more clever. This workshop is suitable for people who are beginners. You'll need to know a little bit of JavaScript, but I'm going to be introducing concepts as we go. You're also going to need a Facebook account, shock horror, in order to create a page. So if you have one, I would encourage you to kind of get yourself set up with that in a moment. During the workshop, we'll also be signing up for a Vonage API account. If you haven't already got one of those, you might want to skip ahead and just do that quickly while I do this introduction, just to save yourself time a little bit later. Further in this workshop, I will have a coupon code for you, so be ready to enter that a little bit later as well. In preparation for this, I've done a few things. I've already set up a Facebook page, but I'll show you how you can set up your own. I've also got my API key and secret in environment variables, which means I don't need to show them to you on this live stream. And I have created a folder on the desktop called Facebook Bot. It is empty. As you can see, there's nothing in it. And I've just opened that up in a code editor, ready to go. So that's all I've done. And I think it's probably time to kick off. I'm going to periodically check back on this Remo tab. Yep, everything's still working okay. Just I'll be coming back here a few times to check it's all still working well. So before we kick off and start writing code, it's important to note that the way our APIs work is that when we link our Facebook page to our Vonage API account and we receive messages, information about that message will be sent to an endpoint, an application endpoint that exists somewhere that is accessible using a URL. We are going to be building things locally on our computer, which means that by default, that application is only visible to either applications only on our machine or applications on our network. So we're going to be using a tool called ngrok in order to take an application that's running on our computer and expose it via a temporary public URL. So I'm going to go over to my terminal. I'm going to use the baked-in terminal in Visual Studio Code, but you can be doing this in your own terminal, command line, PowerShell, whatever it is you use. And we're going to type in npx space ngrok http 3000. And we'll leave that to run for a moment. And what this will do is take the application running on port 3000 on our computer and provide us with a public URL. Let's take a look at that. Here's our public URL right here. So this is the equivalent of localhost 3000. Just note that if you shut your terminal or you shut ngrok and rerun it, this temporary URL will change. So just be aware of that. This is making an application on port 3000 visible to the public. We don't have an application yet, but just remember that we'll need to be building it on port 3000. Next, let's go and create a Facebook page. So if you go to facebook.com/pages/create, you'll end up on a page that looks like this. My experience is if you go and hit get started on the community or public figure option, you have to answer less questions. So you give it a name for your page, you hit continue, and that creates a page. You can ignore all the other questions, they're optional, and then your page will exist. Once you've created a page, I recommend that you send a message to it from your user account, just so it's easier to grab later in your messages. So I've done this ahead of time. So I've got this open over here. So this is my page that I've set up just for this tutorial. So there we are. Next, if you haven't already, create a Vonage API account. I'm going to pop back in Remo. I'm not sure if my pacing's right. I might be going a little quickly. I'm not sure if people are able to. Is everything's okay? Oh, you're not sure about the falling through space look. Just tied it up. Yeah, are we not into this? Wait. I'm gonna derail this for a moment. I found one that is a little, it doesn't move. Here we are. Now we're here. What do you think? I think this might work better. All right, so the next thing to do, thank you. I'm glad you like it. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is sign up for a Vonage API account. You can do this by going to dashboard.nexmo.com and signing up for an account. Hopefully you already have one, but feel free to do that now. I'm going to slow down for the next few minutes because you will need to like verify a phone number. So if you haven't done this, it will take a few moments. So I'll just give you a moment to do that while I natter on about nothingness. Once you've signed up for an account, you are given a couple of euros of credit to get started with. But what I have for you, and I'll show you in a moment, is a coupon code that will give you 20 euros of credit and also lift the restrictions on your account. You can get to it by doing this drop down near your name and hitting coupons. Once you've done that, you can use, oh, that isn't what I wanted to do. Here we are. You can enter promo code DevDayC514. And you know what I might do? I might just pop that in the chat just so it's accessible later for you. Here we are. There we are. So you have that available to you. And that will lift the restrictions on your account. Some people have challenges signing up for a dashboard account if they're using the plugin uBlock Origin. I have no idea why, but it's something I've observed over running this workshop a few times. So if you're having challenges and you're using uBlock Origin, disable it for a moment, sign up for an account, and then by all means re-enable it. You're going to need a couple of things from this dashboard. You're going to need this API key, and you're going to need the API secret. You can click this I symbol to see it, or this icon here to copy it to your clipboard. Do not share your API secret with people. I will not be sharing mine with you, neither should you share it with others. But take note of it, we'll need it later. And if for some reason you've kind of lost it, it's not on your clipboard anymore, you can grab it from the home page of the dashboard right here. So now we've got our Facebook page and we've got our Vonage API account all set up. Now it's time to link the two together. If you head to messenger.nexmo.com, also going to pop that in the Remo chat here. There we are. If you go to messenger.nexmo.com, you can sign in with your Facebook account. You can also alter the permissions and only give it access to certain pages that you are able to give it access to. So I've already done that. So I've given it access to a couple more pages, but here's the page. Here you'll need to pop in your API key from your dashboard, and here you'll need to pop in your API secret, and then you can just hit subscribe. I've done this already because I don't want to show you my API key and secret, but once you've done this, you'll get a little pop-up that tells you that your page has been successfully linked to your account. Now, the final step before we are able to actually start writing code is to create a Vonage API application using the Messages API, and then link our page to our specific application. Right now, we have access to it in our account. Now we need to give it access to an individual application. So I'm going to go back over to my dashboard here. And I'm going to go over to your applications over here on the left. So I've got these couple of applications already. You can just click create a new application. So you should be on a page that looks like this. You can give it any name you want. I'm going to give it the name Vonage Dev Day, but you can call it anything you want. And I'm going to click generate a public and private key. I'm not going to go too much into this, but note that this private.key file has been downloaded. We're going to need that later. And you have to use this in order to authenticate yourself with our platform. Next, we're going to turn on messages. Just to note that this is in beta, you can turn it on here. And there are two URLs that we need to provide. This first URL will be sent data whenever we get a message sent to our page. And I want you to make that your ngrok URL /inbound. It can be anything you want. I'm going to call mine /inbound. This second URL we need to provide will be sent data whenever there's an update about a message that we've sent. For example, has that message been delivered? Has that message been seen? So we'll get updates on this. We do need to provide a URL for both. I'm going to call this one status. And both of these URLs, both of these endpoints will need to return something to the Vonage API platform. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Finally, now we've done this, so we've given it a nice name. We've generated a public and private key, which downloaded the private.key to our downloads folder. We turned on messages, provided an inbound URL, provided a status URL, and now we can generate a new application. So our application ID is here. We're going to need that again later, so I'm just going to copy that. You can always come back via your applications page and grab this later. We can see our URLs are there. And now we're going to link one of our external accounts. So each page I've linked is here. And I'm going to link this page to our application. There we go. That's now linked successfully. So now whenever we send a message to this page, or whenever anyone sends a message to this page, it will send data to this URL. I'm going to just go back to Remo, check everything's still dandy. Looks good. All right. Now that we've done this, it's time to move over to our code editor and actually start writing some code, setting up some dependencies and writing some code. So I'm going to go back over to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to open up a new terminal. So over here in Visual Studio Code, that means ngrok is still running here, and I've got a new terminal to work with here. Remember, if you close the terminal, kill it, or stop ngrok running and you rerun it, the URL will change and you will need to update it in your application settings. Let's start by creating a package.json file. So we can do this by typing in npm init-y, which answers yes to all. It selects all the default answers for the prompts that you would get if you omitted -y. Now that we've got this, let's install some dependencies. We can do this with npm init. I might bump my font size up one more, shut the sidebar. npm init, and we are, sorry, not npm init, npm install, and we're going to need a few dependencies. We're going to need express, body parser, nedb, and nexmo @beta. That's the beta release of the Nexmo node client, which is required to use messages, which is a beta product. While these install, let's recap what these all do. Express is a web application framework for Node.js. Body parser is what they call a body parsing middleware, which means that we can more easily grab the data that's been sent into our Express application. NEDB is a database. I'll show you how to set that up in a bit. And then finally, the Nexmo node library. Before we continue, so I don't forget, I'm also going to pop our private.key file into this folder. So there it is in our downloads. Let's move that over to our Facebook bot folder, like so. Now we have that there. So we've installed our dependencies from npm, and now we're going to create a basic Express application. I'm going to create a new file. You can call it anything you want. I'm going to call mine index.js. I'm going to shut the sidebar again. And let's set up an Express application. So we're going to create a new app, and that's going to require Express and immediately initialize it. We are going to include body parser, body parser. I don't know why parser always gets me. I always look at it like, that doesn't look right, but that is how you spell it. Then we're going to configure our Express app with some body parser settings. We're going to use body parser and then set it up with some settings. So app.use body parser.json. And we're going to just do some body parser configuration, body parser.url encode. Encoded is another word. Encoded, yes, that is correct. And we're going to just pass into that extended true. So this is all just real scaffolding for pretty much every Express application you will probably ever build. And then we are going to run this on port 3000. And it has an option for a callback function. I do see that I mistyped that. Oh, Kevin, come on, Butterfingers. Function. And we're just going to console log server running. Okay, boss. Fabulous. Let's just test this works by running it. So in our terminal, in the folder where this index.js file is, we can run node index.js and we get server running AOK boss, which means I haven't made an awful typo yet. There's plenty of time for that. So our web application here will have a number of endpoints. Endpoints have two portions. They have a method, an HTTP method, such as get, which requests data, or post, which is convention when you are sending data in or creating new records, and also a path. So, for example, our status endpoint will be will have the method post, so app.post, and the path will be slash, I think we said it was called inbound. If this was a get endpoint, if it used the get method, that would say get. And there are plenty of others, but this is a post request. And then there is a callback function. Callback function. This will have a request, all the data about the request that we've got sent to us, and then an object called response that we will eventually send back. Now, before we continue, I'm just going to check back in Remo. Everything's still good. Brilliant. Right. So as I mentioned, this will need to respond with something so the Vonage API platform doesn't think that it was unsuccessful. So we'll set up a basic response here. We'll just respond with HTTP status 200, which means OK, everything's good, and we'll send that to the client. Also going to console.log request, and we'll see what happens with that. As mentioned, there's also a status endpoint. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and we're going to create a status endpoint that will console.log the request and then respond with a 200. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to rerun my node server. I'm going to go over to my page, and I'm going to send hello. And we should see over here, oh, I said res, that should say response. But that error happened after the console log, so we can still look at the console log. There's a lot of information here. We're not going to use a majority of this. But let's just see. Oh, it was bigger than I remember it being. There we go. Look at that. It's still going, still going. You know what? I'm going to shortcut this somewhat and tell you that the data that was sent to us is accessible in request.body. And it's accessible in the body object because we have included body parser. So I'm going to restart this server. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to send hey. There we are. Now you'll notice we actually got 2 there. That's because we never successfully responded with 200. So that request was attempted a second time. Now that we have responded 200 to both requests, we won't be getting this again. So we'll see there's some information here. There's a unique identifier for the inbound message. This is the data that was sent to us. So the from ID is the ID of the Facebook user that sent us this message. So that's me. And then 2, that is the page ID. So every page also has an ID. There's also a timestamp. And over here in the message object, inside of the content object, we can see that we were sent some text and the value was hey. What we really care about here is we care about who it was sent from and the message they actually sent us. But we know this has been successful because it has logged on our terminal. However, as soon as this request is over, we lose this message forever. We're going to want to store it in a database, as you probably guessed, not only because I said it in the run-up to this workshop, but also we installed a dependency, which was a database. So before I set this up, let's talk a little bit about the database choice for this workshop. There are loads of databases available. Many of them act slightly differently to others. This workshop uses a database called NEDB. NEDB, here we are. It has a very similar API to MongoDB, which is more established, but this will not require us to host a database. It will read and write and edit records directly to a file on our computer. This is brilliant for the sake of this proof of concept, this workshop, very low barrier to entry. I would not put this into production because it is ultimately one plain text file that contains all of your data. For this workshop though, absolutely fine. So let's go and require NEDB. I think the convention with NEDB is that we require it using the name data store with a capital D. You can call it anything you want though. You could call this NEDB. You just have to remember what it's called. And now let's initialize and include a database. So let's create a new database called messages. That will be a new instance of NEDB. And inside of these parentheses, we can pass some options. The first option is the actual file name that we're going to be storing, data in. And I think the property is called file name. So this file name is messages.db. And the second option we're going to give it is autoload true. This means that as soon as our application starts running, we will load and establish a link to this database. We could leave this out and manually load this database only when it's required in a more complex application. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to restart the server. Oh, I called it database. Should have been data store. Let's try that again. All right, server running A-OK. What we'll now notice is this new file has been created, messages.db. So it will create it if it doesn't exist, and it will load it if it does exist. So that's now our database created. Now let's actually, when we get messages in, this object here, let's store it in the database. Now this API is, as I said, very, very similar to MongoDB. So hopefully, if you've used MongoDB, this will look quite familiar. Because I'm overly paranoid, I'm just going to check everything's still good in Remo. Fabulous. Right, we're back here now. So the object with all of our data is in request.body. We can insert items in our database by providing the name of the database here, messages.insert. And there are two arguments that we can pass into this method. The first is an object, and as request.body is an object, we can just pass that straight in. You might choose to do something with this data before you store it. You might choose to only enter certain properties, but we're just going to throw it all in because we are lazy and this is only a basic workshop. But you might do something else with this later. So messages.insert, we're going to insert the object request.body, and the second argument is a callback function. Two parameters. The first is an error, and the second is the actual data record. I think NEDB calls them documents, so I'll call it a document. So what we're going to do here is, firstly, we're going to check if there's an error. If there's an error, we'll console log the error. And if there isn't an error, then let's just console log the new document. Yeah, that looks good. Let's restart our server and let's send a message to our page. Okay. Why has this happened twice? Oh, yes, they are not the same. It's because I'm console logging several places. So this is the console log of our inbound message. I'm actually going to remove this to save ourselves from later confusion. When I say ourself, I mean myself. The second one here is the document that was inserted in the database. You'll notice one difference. This object here has an _ID property that has been entered. So any DB will automatically create a unique identifier to refer to every record in the database. As it happens, every message sent via the Vonage API platform also has a unique identifier, but any DB doesn't know that. So it creates a unique identifier like so. Let's go and take a look at the messages.db file. I'm going to just wrap that. You'll see it's put the entire object in here, including the _ID. This is exactly the same as this object here. So it is storing it as a JavaScript object. So that's great. We're now storing messages in a database. So this is great. Like we're probably over halfway there, which is good because I'm over halfway of the time I have. However, we know things have successfully gone into the database. Our users do not. They have received nothing in return. So the next thing we're going to do is actually respond to the user and let them know that, hey, this has been successful. Or not, or there's been an error, I suppose, as well. Now we're going to include and initialize the Nexmo node library. So let's include Nexmo. I'll do this with an uppercase N, and we'll just require Nexmo. So now that we've included, now that we've required this library, it's time to initialize it. When we initialize it, we're going to need to provide a few pieces of information that hopefully you should have to hand. And if not, I'll give you some time to go grab it. So let's initialize this. So we'll go new Nexmo. There are 4 properties that we should provide. The first is our API key. Now you can go to your dashboard, copy your API key, pop it in as a string. Remember, though, if you're putting your API key and secrets directly in this file, that isn't a problem right now in this workshop, but you should not share this file because you shouldn't be sharing specifically your API secret. So don't check this into Git. Don't share this file with a friend. I'm going to use an environment variable, but you are welcome to pop a string in for now and then abstract that out later. So I've got this available in process.env.nexmo key. And then the next one is the API secret. That is available in process.env.nexmo secret. You may or may not have heard Doggo, who's joined me. Hey, bud. Yes, we are using the messages API. It is very exciting. I agree. So he really wants to play. I don't want to play. So we have the API key and secret. The third property we're going to provide is the application ID. You remember I said you should go grab that application ID and store that? I did. I forgot. So I'm going to go grab that now. I'm going to pop that in here as a string. The final value we're going to provide is a private key. And this is just going to be a path to the private key file. It's in the same folder as index.js, and the private.key is here, so we can reference that like so. So we've now initialized the Nexmo node library with the 4 properties required. Let's now use this library to actually send a message. So let's start with when we have been successful. So when we send a message, we're going to require 3 pieces of information. We're going to require the page we're going to send it from, the page we're going to send it to, and the actual message. And actually looking at the inbound message object is a really good way of referring to how this should look. So let's create a variable called to. In fact, I'm not going to use to and from. I'm going to use sender and recipient because I think that is going to be, no, I will use to and from. So who are we going to send it to? This is going to be an object. It's going to have a type. The type is messenger. just the same as this. And we're also going to need to provide an ID. So we're going to send this to, I might just pop that a little, I might just wrap my text here. There we are. So we're going to send it to an ID. We're going to send it to the value, which is in request. Ooh. Where are we at? Right, there we are. Request.body.from.id. This always gets me a little bit. Remember, when we're getting an inbound message, it is from an ID, and then when we're sending the message back, that then becomes the to. So this is the value of the ID of the user that sent us a message. We'll do the same for from. So const from. This is going to be a type of messenger and an ID of request.body.to.id. And then finally, we are going to create a message. And the message is going to be an object that contains an object called content, and that will have a type of text, and the value of the property text will be, we got your message, just something in response. Now that we've prepared these three objects, we can send it using the Nexmo Messages API by going nexmo.channel.send. The first property is an object of who we're sending it to. The second one is an object of the page it's coming from. The third one is an object containing our message information. And then the final optional parameter is a callback function that will provide an error if there is an error. And I'm just going to console.log an error if that occurs, just to help us debug this. Let's save this. Let's restart our server. And let's try sending a message to our page. All right, look at that. So we've got a response that said we got your message. And we also see here three objects that have been sent to us. One has a status of submitted, one has a status of delivered, one has a status called read, and they all have the same message UUID value. This is nothing to do with our inbound message. This is actually the console log from the status endpoint. I left this in because I wanted to show you how the status endpoint works. I think it's quite interesting that we can kind of get the state of a message as it's going, through the path of being delivered and read by a user. But this is quite a lot of information going into our terminal. So I'm just going to comment this out for the rest of this workshop. But just know these three all came from the Messages API. Okay. Console.log error is null because there is no error. We might want to wrap this in just an if statement. If there's an error, console log the error, like so. All right, so that's looking pretty good. We're getting a response. I'm going to just check Remo's still good. We're still good. I am still going to check it, even though I've not been given any reason to believe that it will not work. So the final thing I think we want to do is actually go and retrieve messages from the database and send them to a user if they send us a certain keyword. We'll use the keyword recap, but it could be anything, and you'll see where you can swap that word out. Because we're going to be sending a message to the user in a different context, we should probably take this message sending logic and turn it into a reusable function, because we're going to need it again, and I don't really want to write this all out again. So I'm going to cut all of this just above here. Let's create a function. I'll call it send message. It will have a recipient, a sender. This is where recipient, there we are, a sender and some text. Paste all of this logic in. Let's just see what we need to change. Well, we're going to definitely be changing who it's to. So that's going to be the recipient. So we'll need to pass in their ID. This one will be the sender. This one will be text. I think that's all we need to change. This is now a nice reusable message sending function. So we're going to just update this with send message. The first value we said was the recipient. So that's request.body.from.id. The next one is request.body.to.id. And finally, the text, we've got your message. Let's just restart the server, check that's all still working. Okay, great. We've still got a response there. And I believe that should all now be in a database. There we are. So all 3 messages are being stored successfully. All right. Now let's go and build that logic that will go and recall data from the database. So we get our message in from the user. And the first thing I suppose we want to do is check if they've actually sent us that keyword. So let's do an if statement in here. We'll say if request.body, now I'm just going to have to refer back to this big object, .message, .content.text is equal to, and I think we said the word recap, then we'll do something here. And if they haven't sent us the word recap, we will go and insert the object and then send them a response. There is one issue with the way we're doing this, and it's that it's case sensitive. So if someone gave us recap with a capital R, this would not work. The solution to this is to take the message that the user sent us and push it to lowercase, and then compare it against a lowercase version of the string. This is now case insensitive. It's still not handling things like if at the end there's a full stop or a space, if there's white space, you'll need to go trim that. But this will probably work in 90% of cases where users are trying to get this to work. Let's go and get some data from the database. So in order to do this, again, I think this is the same as the MongoDB API, or if not very similar. We can go messages.find, and messages.find will return every item that exists in the messages database. But it will do that irrespective of who is sending us the word recap, which means we'll send every message, which we don't want to do. So we want to filter them down. The first argument in messages for messages.find, is an object, and inside of the object we can provide a filter. So if these were not nested, if I was doing message UUID, I could go message. Oh, real butterfingers today. Message UUID, and I could put in a value, and this would compare it. However, we have a value that's nested, so we just have to wrap it in quotes. So we're going to be checking if the from.id is equal to the request.body.from.id. So it will now go and grab every message that has been sent to us so far. It will, let me restart that sentence. It will return every message that has come from the user who has sent us the word recap, which is what we want. And then there is a callback function. It has an error, and then it also has documents. All right. Error and documents. So documents should now contain an array. Let's just console.log documents. Let's see what happens with this. Let's restart. Send a message. I'm running out of how I introduce my. You know what? I might just start at the top in a really boring way. All right, we got your message, but if I go for the word recap, there we are. Look, we see every message that has been sent in its entirety. This is great, but we need to eventually turn this into a friendly string, and we don't want to send them a whole object of data like this. We probably just want to cherry pick a couple of pieces of data and then turn that into a string. We can do this using the array method map. So if documents is an array, we can put .map in, and for every individual document, We'll use this syntax as I've used it so far. And I can alter what comes back. So for every iteration for every item inside of documents, that now has the value of doc, and I can return a value. So for example, if I just return the message, the doc.message.content.text, and assign this to a variable. I'll call it friendly messages, and then we console.log friendly messages. Restart the server. Back over here, let's type the word recap. And you'll see that it has now just pulled out that value. It still is an array, so a map will return an array of the same length of the original array, but it will alter each value, or it will manipulate each value inside of that array. We probably don't just want to return this. I reckon we should also return the date stamp so people know when they've sent it to us. So we can return doc.message.content.text. Let's add to the end of that sent on, and then add to that the doc.time stamp, and just close bracket there. Let's restart the server. Check often recap. There we are. So now we've got slightly more interesting messages. In reality, you'd probably want to do something with these dates, but for the sake of this workshop, we are not going to do anything with these dates. Finally, we want to turn this all into a single string, and we can do this using by at the end of an array putting a dot join. So let's just dot join that, and let's console log that again. Friendly messages. Let's restart the server. Recap. This is great. We see it all. It's all a string. However, there's no, you can't really tell where one ends and one begins. What you put inside of dot join is what is known as a delimiter. It is the separator between each instance. So if I put 2 semicolons, for example, restart this, send recap again, you'll see that every message is separated by 2 semicolons, like so. We could also use in JavaScript a \n to push to a new line. So let's do that. Right, now everything is on a new line. And just to make this even easier to read, I might put in another new line like so. Great. So that is our message. And now we just need to send that back to the user. So I'm actually just going to copy and paste this send message because the first couple of parameters will be the same. So we are going to send it to this user from this page, and the value will be a string, which is stored in a variable called friendly messages. There we are. Let's restart that. The message, send recap. Look at that. We've now got all of our messages. Again, you might want to do something with the dates, but I think that kind of brings us to the end of our introduction to the Messages API, building Facebook bots with the Messenger API. Let's recap what we did, because that was quite a whirlwind tour. I know I've only got a couple of minutes, so I'll go quite quickly. We set up a Facebook page. We set up a Vonage API account. We linked the two of them. We set up a Vonage API application and linked our page to it. That application has a couple of URLs. One of them is an ngrok URL. Ngrok makes our local applications available on a public URL. So every time a message comes in on the page, it will post some information to that URL, which is our local application running on port 3000. If the user sends us anything but recap, we're just going to store the whole object that gets sent to us from the Vonage API platform, and we're going to store it in the database, send a response to the user using the Nexmo Node client. And if they send us the word recap, case insensitive, we will go grab every record where the from.id, matches the person who has sent us the word recap. We'll use the .map and then the dot join array methods to turn it into one nicely formatted string. Again, might want to do something with those dates, and then send that off to the user. There are some extra things you could do here. You could go off to a third-party service, an API, return things like the weather, the dates, travel statuses. You could use some form of machine learning service, Dialogflow, Whip.ai, or others in order to add what I will call some conversational intelligence. You could just use this for like gathering data from users, maybe a Q&A where people could send you messages to a page. And using the Messages API, you can really easily extend this to also working across WhatsApp and Viber and SMS. In fact, the only real things you need to change in here are the type. And on certain platforms, the other parameter is not called ID. Like for sending SMS, it's called MSISDM, which is a telephone number. But you can use this exact same API to send across multiple platforms. I think that kind of brings me to the end of my workshop. Hopefully you found it useful. I will be around all day. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out. If you have questions beyond the day, feel free to join the developer community Slack, and there are people there to help you. Final quick plug, I do a beginner-friendly coding stream on the Vonage Devs Twitch channel. The link is at the bottom of this page when we go into the social view. My next one's tomorrow, and we're doing some stuff with the video API. So that's at 6 p.m. UK time, and hopefully I will see you there. I will stop talking now. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, Kevin. That was really good.
Thank you.
We've gotten a few questions. Through the Q&A section, and I think the first one is: does the Facebook Messages API support Python and Java?
The Messages API is the Messages API. You can, so we have helper libraries in a number of languages. I'm mostly a JavaScript developer. I don't know what the coverage is for the other server SDKs. I'm sure other people in my team will jump in and be like, I know the answer. But ultimately, even if we don't have a helper library in your given language, as long as you can make an HTTP request from your application, you can interact with the Messages API. The server SDKs are there to help you, but then you are not bound to them. You can just make HTTP requests. So yes, you can definitely use it in much more obscure languages as well.
I know the answer to that. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. So
yes, you're good.
It's supported in the reason I know the answer to that is because I work on the Node SDK, so I'm part of the SDK team, and it's supported currently in the Node SDK, and the other SDKs don't support it yet. We're gonna slowly build support for it throughout this year. But as Kevin said, it's an API. You can call it from whatever library or framework you want to.
And as Ben has just jumped into the general chat with, in the next talk, Ben will be showing usage of the Messages API without SDK support, so you'll be able to see how to do it there as well.
Perfect. Let's see if we've got more questions. What's the coolest use case you've seen a Facebook bot be used for?
Coolest, I mean, that's very, very subjective, isn't it? What's my cool is not someone else's cool. I will tell you a slightly different use case that I've built recently. I built a chess game. So there's still a database element where we're storing the state of chess games, but it's one where one person can create a game, gets a little short code, they send it to a friend, and then they can play, because you aren't just bound to sending text. You'll notice in the actual message object, there was a type of text. You can also send an image. So we were sending images of chessboards back and forth. So that's something a little different that you could do with that API. I'm not sure if it's cool, but it was cool to me.
I think that's quite cool. I never thought I'd be playing chess in Facebook, but it turned out great. It worked really great. So I thought that was cool.
Thank you.
Okay. If anybody has any more questions for Kevin, now is a good time. You've got the chat, you've got the Q&A section. I'm gonna give everybody a minute. If people don't have questions, we're gonna jump into our break, and we're gonna all be sat around tables of 6, and we can interact with each other, have a conversation with our cameras and microphones on. It's kind of the the alternative to the hallway track in a conference. And after our break, we're gonna come back here in 25 minutes. Yes, in 25 minutes, we'll be back here. I think it's 25 minutes. I hope it's 25 minutes. Otherwise, Almighty is gonna, yes, 25 minutes, 25 minutes. We're gonna be back here 25 minutes, and we're gonna join Ben and his quest to do NLP, or natural language understanding, and the messages API without an SDK.
Very excited.
It looks like we've got another question. How is there a way to hang up on a phone call when using the voice API? I feel like this isn't Kevin's cup of tea. But there's an update. There's a way to update the calls via the update endpoint, and that you give it a call UID, and then it accepts a set of commands. One of them being to hang up the phone after you've gotten that. Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. Almighty, please move us all at the tables. I'm gonna hang out at the organizers table if people want to. Chat and interact. There's going to be a moderators table, and then a lot of other tables, so find your space. One more question before we leave. Kevin, is your code available to view on GitHub?
Oh, you don't want to view this code on GitHub. One of our amazing colleagues wrote a blog post about this, which steps through it much nicer. There's code involved in that. I will pop it in the chat in just a moment. It is pretty much what I've just done, but written and explained in a much nicer way. I'll go grab that now.
Okay, it looks like we've got another question. This is good. What is the difference of integration if we do it using the sandbox?
This is actually where I would love to refer to the blog post, which talks about setting this up in the sandbox. It is almost identical. There's a little bit more setup you need to do because you won't be linking it to your own page. You know what I'm going to do just to keep us on track is I'm going to go grab that blog post. I'm going to pop it in the chat for the couple of last questions we had, and then I'm around to answer questions during the social and throughout the rest of the day and in the community Slack. Hope that's okay. I just want to keep us moving.
Perfect, Kevin. Perfect. I love it when somebody else does my job and I'm not the bad person here. Thank you so much. So Almighty, please switch us